Okay, we'll get started. Thank you guys for all coming to lecture 5. Today we're going to be talking about prototyping and like design accessibility. So yeah, we're going to talk about the midterm first of all, and then we'll talk about design accessibility, prototyping functions, and then some basic prototyping. Here's the attendance form as usual. It is again the same form every week, but feel free to type this link in to fill it out. And then here's also like the link for this slide deck. So everything you see here will be in this link. Yeah. And before we start, we'll take like 5 minutes to show your partner your homework assignment. I know you guys all made something really cute or fun, and please show that off to someone near you. So please go ahead and do that right now. Oh, also, no, no.
do I go back? I pressed, oh, I'm silly. Down. I'm blind. I'm actually so blind. Okay. Dude, I know. In favor? Oh, that's like. All right. That was pretty awesome. Thank you all for entertaining Katie and I. You guys did great. Let's talk about our midterm. Our midterm. It's coming up. It's being released. Um, yeah. You are all going to create a project surrounding a local restaurant. So we'd like to see a project started from start to finish from you all. And we have a variety of prompts to choose from. So first of all, if you're drawn more towards visual design in the pen tool, you can pick between branding and illustration. So for branding, you are going to redesign their branding and create an illustration for marketing. And if you want to do an illustration, you can create 3 illustrations inspired by the restaurant. And so here's like a greater breakdown of these prompts. But if you're like me and you're more drawn to like UI, UX kind of stuff, you can make a website redesign or you can make a mobile food delivery app for the restaurant. So, and yeah, again, right below it is like the specific criteria we're looking for, going to be grading on. Yeah, these are your options. Question. Yeah, so we talked about that a week or two ago, and yeah, and we're gonna touch on that again today. So, do you want three? Yeah, yeah. So we want to see like your entire design process of redesigning this app. And yeah, again, we'll touch on exactly what we're looking for when we say low, medium, and high fidelity. Any other questions? Great. Okay, there's also an open-ended option where you can submit your own project proposal. That's a separate assignment in B courses. So if you're really feeling inspired, you can write up a clear overview of your intended project, and it's going to have like a similar outline for what we require. You know, you can't just say, hey, I want to do like one pen tool drawing. Unfortunately, not. So you got to hit sort of a similar requirement, but you can say, hey, I think the pen tool is really cool. And I think that, you know, maybe not a local restaurant, but some other thing really appeals to me. And I want to make a design around that. Totally open to that. So please type up a proposal, submit it to us, and we'll get back to you. And it's due Tuesday. So you can get feedback from your lab TA before you submit it. Great. Yes. Um, I think that's fine. Yeah. Um, okay. So your submission, you do have one slip day, which is 24 hours for either the midterm or the final. So you can use it for either or. We're automatically going to apply it for you. That being said, if you need an extension, please let us know. We're very open to these things, but please get that in before the project deadline and don't email 5 days after the fact and say, hey, by the way, can I turn it in now? That might not fly unless it's, you know, really serious. But yeah, just let us know. Keep us in the loop. And yeah, here's the link for the public website for the midterm information if you're curious. I'll give everyone a moment to type that in so you can all take a look. Any final questions before we move on to some Figma concepts today? You know, a good question. I think this would fall under the like restaurant category in my opinion, but also feel free to write it up.
I think as long as like stuff.
Yeah. So like if you choose something that doesn't have like a sort of delivery centered service, this mobile app wouldn't make the most sense to like hit our requirements. But if you still want to do an app, you just don't want to do like a mobile delivery app, let us know. That makes sense. Okay. Cool. Let's jump into talking about design accessibility. So what is accessibility? The concept of accessibility seeks to ensure that products and experiences can be accessed by everyone, regardless of their abilities. Accessibility within design involves considering the needs of people with disabilities. So disabilities are defined in two ways: as a physical or mental impairment that limits one's ability to do certain activities, or the inability of the environment to accommodate for one's needs. So when we design, we want to keep these things in mind. And when we come up with user personas, we want to get a broad group of users. So it's also helpful to think about disabilities as not permanent conditions, but the result of many factors. So this persona chart on the right, move away here, depicts many different types of personas with mismatched needs to their environment. Some, like a person with one arm, are permanent, while other mismatches are like situational, like a person with a heavy accent in a country foreign to them. See here, a distracted driver is a situational disability. Questions? Okay. So disability is just a mismatch between a person and their environment, simply. And shifting language is important when we talk about these things. And language is flexible, so it shifts and changes based on the culture of the time. So even the most well-intentioned phrases can be later recognized as negative and harmful. So for example, hearing impaired implies damage to a person's hearing. And so this phrase has been deemed to focus on the impairment as not the norm. And this sort of ties a person to their impairment, which is bad. So now terms like deaf or hard of hearing have become more accepted by these communities. And so it's important to just keep that in mind, respect that when we think about these things. And so this brings us to our accessibilities of design. We have usable design, where usable design functions as intended and is easy and intuitive to use. Accessible design accommodates for the needs of a group of people, and inclusive design includes and applies to as many people as possible. I'm going to move my camera again here. So visual design, what might accessibility look like? So image description. So maybe you want to include text that describes an image. So this should be concise, yet descriptive enough for users to understand what's going on in the image. You can see this image describes Ace surrounded by certain colors, includes their pronouns. Thinking about color contrast is important. This text on the background needs to meet high enough levels of contrast to be discernible. And I think there's certain software that lets you test this, in your designs. I don't know the name of it, but There are like certain tests you can run to make sure that, you're choosing the right color, background, and text. A lot of websites, yeah, definitely. And so captioning is also something to consider that will transcribe the audio. So users that are hard of hearing can keep up with the lecture in many cases. Color contrast again. For example, take this BART design. People who have a low vision or a form of color vision deficiency might view the information very differently. So this BART map, as well as most transportation maps, is color-coded. And without any color, this becomes very hard to discern which route is which. Here are some other examples of color coding schemes that attempt yeah, some of these are kind of confusing to me. You can see here, here's a lot of muted oranges, browns. Here's two sort of greens. But here's some examples of this inclusive design. So tactile paving can be distinct and bumpy enough to sort of warn users that they're nearing the edge. Curb cuts actually began in Berkeley. And, I definitely appreciate a curb cut. I always enjoy partaking in the curb cut. That makes sense. We all benefit from these things, even though at first they were intended to help a certain group of people. So text to speech also helps users vocalize their thoughts. And we all benefit from these things, even though maybe we specifically aren't the target user group. And so that's where we want to be, is sort of in the middle. We call this universal design. And this is a culmination of all the principles that are championed by usable, accessible, and inclusive design. It encompasses the needs of users to the greatest ability. So here's an example of this particular vegetable peeler. So you probably use a vegetable peeler if you cook or bake. And this peeler has a grippy handle that will help you hold on to the peeler. And so these were intended to help people with arthritis because they need the grip support. But who doesn't want a grippy vegetable peeler? Like, we benefit by these advances. And I do have a vegetable peeler. It doesn't have any grips and it's not fun. I don't know if this is just the vegetable peeler design, but oftentimes I end up like hitting my hands on the cutting board when I'm peeling down. I don't know how we fix that. I'm gonna let y'all think about it. Maybe it's your final product. No, I'm just kidding. Do you have any questions about accessible universal design? Cool. Let's talk about prototyping. This is what I love to use Figma for. My favorite feature. So prototyping is the process of turning design concepts into tangible forms that can be digital or physical, but they can be tested to reveal insights. So within the context of Figma, prototyping allows designers to demonstrate how these interfaces we design will behave and how users can interact with our prototypes. So you can see here on the right, there's a giant file with all these arrows. What's going on? So first, let's recall fidelity. So low fidelity, right? We want to be very quick. We're just getting a general concept and layout of the design. So you can see here, we use a lot of boxes to denote content, circles. We're just blocking stuff out on the page. Moving into mid fidelity, we start to think about user interaction, right? Some buttons start to take shape. Button functionality is considered. This sort of text block, okay, that's going to be our username, right? We made a decision consciously to sort of include this information. And high fidelity is sort of elevating our design, right? This is very close to a finished product. We start to add colors and other icons and fun things. Here's the logo. Any questions on this? That's what you're going to be doing for the midterm if you choose web design or app design. Okay. So prototyping is essentially forming connections between two objects within a frame. So it allows designers to define what happens when a user interacts with A. How do they get to B? What is that behavior? So think of frames in a prototype as instances. So here's this sort of screenshot of this cat Instagram page. Each interaction with the page is going to result in a different instance. So from the main page, you can click on the cat picture, and it will take you to this post page with the post blown up. From here, if you click on the comment button, you'll be taken to the comments screen where you can comment. So there can also be multiple connections made from one object or frame as long as each interaction has a different trigger, which we'll cover in a bit. There can be multiple interactions made with different objects in the same frame. So if we look at what we have with Instagram's save functionality, so users can tap on the save icon to save a post, but also they can tap and hold on the save, They can tap and hold on the save icon to save to a specific collection. And to start doing this in Figma, on the right-hand side, you'll see your prototype panel, which shares a home with your design panel. So if you navigate to prototype with nothing selected, it should look like this. And while you're in prototype mode, you will have access to prototyping tools. But if you want to get back, you can simply switch back to design mode. And this triangle right here is the present mode. This will allow you to see the results of your prototyped app. Also, Figma offers device settings. So this will determine how your prototype is displayed, on what device will it show up. And you can also choose not to present on a certain device size. Our slides are actually selected without any device. But here you can see how your design might look if you choose an iPhone or an Android tablet. Or actually don't know what this is. This is a Surface Pro, excuse me. So in Figma, when you want to build this interaction, you add a connection. So first you can select an object and a blue plus icon should sort of appear. And you're able to click and drag that to any other node. And that will make a connection. So you can see here in this example, we click on this square and we drag to frame 2. And there's also alternative ways like adding an interaction using a plus panel. But now these two frames are connected. And the default prototype is sort of on click and navigate. So you can see here when it pops up, it doesn't stay on the screen, but the functionality is when you click this red square, frame 2 will be navigated to. So you can imagine in your iPhone, if you click on the red square, you will be greeted with the second page with a smaller red square. So it's sort of your screen, and you're navigating to different screens like this. So what are some of the options of a prototyped interaction? So triggers determine which user interaction will result in the prototype response. So the default is on click, but you can see you can program in other behavior like hover or drag, or when the mouse enters or the mouse presses down. And these will all just activate your prototyped behavior. Or in other words, your action will execute. So your actions are what happens when these triggers are activated. And yeah. The other thing is animations, and these determine how the prototype will move from one frame or another. And once you've made a connection between two frames, you can edit the interaction. So here in more detail, you can see this will pop up when you click and drag. You can see here, here's the trigger on click. The action is navigate to, and here will be the frame that you've selected. So frame 2 is the destination. And the animation panel will let you choose if it's smart animate, if it's ease in, ease out, how long the animation will take. And yeah, this is just your settings panel where you can mess with everything. And I think this is just an example with Smart Animate, showing what you can prototype when you just click. So you can click this giant red square and it will navigate to frame 2. And when you click the small orange square, it will navigate to frame 1. And you're able to smart animate this interaction. So it sort of has this ease in, ease out effect. Questions here? Ooh, okay. Pass this over.
Okay, now we'll talk about more like the prototyping functions, like more of the details of it. So what can you do with prototyping tools? You can do like a lot. You can make like a fully fleshed out app or any kind of like device or product. And it's pretty simple just by making these connections that we just learned about with the prototyping mode. You can make like functional buttons, navigate between frames, and like any kind of basic animation. Even like apart from UI UX, you can just do like fun games or fun like little animation things in Figma, which is really cool. So yeah, we mainly cover like the basic prototyping tools and functions, and then in a few weeks we'll go into like more advanced prototyping. So in this example, you can see like the Spotify interface of like a mobile device. So we've like prototyped interactions between a playlist thumbnail. When you click on it, it'll go into the playlist. And then also like back to the main page. So yeah, the right is kind of like the result of the connections we made in the left side. So like slides in. Yeah, these are some other examples using components and prototyping. So you can make checkboxes, animate button clicks, and like swipe away to delete blocks. So the different actions and animations within like a prototyping interaction. Yeah, so triggers are like pretty self-explanatory. It's like how you're interacting with that object to elicit a certain response. And then actions and animations are kind of that response that's happening because of the trigger. So yeah, you'll explore more of this also in your lab section. Um, and yeah, these are some examples of the different action types. So we have navigate to, which is the default, and then there's also open overlay, scroll to, stuff like that. We'll talk a little bit more about these. But yeah, just recall that actions are reactions to triggers and they determine what happens next during an interaction. And animations are kind of how that action is played out. So for the open overlay action, you can see on the right, which is like opening the overlay. But so basically use like different workspace frames in the interaction details panel for an open overlay action. And then this overlay is housed in a different frame. And then it's kind of like pulled into the original frame that you start with. So using open overlay, you're still staying on the same frame that you start your connection on, and then it's kind of just bringing that new thing on top of it. And it's also mainly used for like sidebar opening things and like menu pop-ups, stuff like that. And then navigate to, which is like our default setting. It simply means just like upon the trigger, you just move from this frame to that frame, and it's like totally switching out the frames. Yeah, so it's like when you have to like completely change a page in an app, stuff like that. And then these are some of the general Figma animation styles that you can choose from. There's like dissolve, which is kind of, like a smooth cross dissolve thing. Also like move in, move out, push and slide. They're kind of all like similar, but I'm sure you get the main idea of what they are by looking at these examples. And then another thing that you can do with animation is also like changing the easing curves. This is kind of like the acceleration, deceleration of the animation. So you'll see like with this linear ease, it's kind of like it looks pretty static and consistent with how it's moving. It's not slowing down or speeding up. But on the right with the ease in and ease out, it's like going fast and then going slow. It's like moves and then like slows down towards the end of that movement. And then it keeps doing that. So ease in is kind of like it starts slow and then it goes really fast. And you'll see on all of these like graphs, which is like the ease curve, it's like time by position. So like for the ease in, it's kind of like an exponential curve. So the speed grows over time. Very mathy. Ease out is like the opposite. So it goes really fast and then it goes slow towards like the end of its animation. Yeah, so when you're prototyping, you make a lot of connections, especially if you're making like an app or something like that. There's like so many things you can push on a screen, and that leads to like a lot of connections. And it can get really complicated, like just looking at this picture of all these like blue lines. It's very like there's so many things crossing each other and it's hard to understand. But yeah, this is why we like to keep things organized. And one way by doing that is like making sure all your layers are organized. So this involves like renaming your layers and like sorting them. Yeah, so this is a very helpful tool. It's kind of like cleaning as you go. Organizing your layers as you make them is very, very helpful in the long run. I'm sure you'll thank yourself later if you do this. So yeah, you'll see on the left side, we have like all the layers are kind of messy. All the names are like really long and you don't know really what order they're in. So when you change it to the second side, the second frame, you'll see like they're numbered and they're like sectioned off and it's like concise. So it's like a very small thing, but I think it makes all the difference in your design. Yes, also using components and their variants. You also want to keep these organized just for the sake of ease and simplicity, so you know where to go and where everything is that you're going to use in your design. Yeah, the workspace shown to the left here has layer components organized by like the size. So it's like 16 pixel and 32 pixel, as well as where they are in the actual prototype. So like the layers panel, assets panel. Yeah. In prototyping, there's also flows, and each flow is kind of like one like whole flow of your like prototyping that you're doing of like the interaction. So you can like have multiple flow starting points and then that constitutes like which flow it is. And then so you can have like in one workspace multiple different flows, but they all like start and end in their own like sphere. Yeah, you can create multiple flows for your prototype in one page to preview different user journeys in your design. And like by definition, a flow is a path users take through a series of connected frames. In contrast, a prototype is a collection of these flows. And yeah, you can make different starting points, as I said, which is very useful for iterating or deciding between designs, also known as A/B testing. So how you create a flow, creating a connection between two frames automatically creates a starting point for a flow. And then you can also create multiple flows using the same frames, but adding starting points at like different places. I think, well, like, when you have a frame selected, you can also like push the add flow starting point in like your prototyping panel on the right. But yeah, To add a starting point, you can do one of the following. So you can either select the starting frame and then click in the flow starting point section of the right sidebar, like I just said. Select and right click the starting frame and then click add starting point, or duplicate a frame with an existing starting point, and then that'll also keep it. Yeah, so this is an example. You have all these different frames, and you can kind of sort them by different flows, by the colors, and it's just for a more efficient way to test your design with user testing and feedback. You can also name your flows accordingly. So on the right sidebar of your prototyping panel, you can see like where the starting points are, and then it's very helpful if you name them. So you can say like, oh, like, user 1, user 2, stuff like that. And then in presentation mode, you can also toggle between each different flow of the same page so that you can see each separate flow, which is useful to provide prompts to participants for usability tests, documentation, or just provide additional context. So now we will do a short demo about prototyping. So if you have the lecture slides, if not, I will show you this link once more. Please open this up and make a copy. And then we're gonna go to the prototyping practice demo page on the left here. Yeah, I will just get this, but we're gonna be working on this little like plant growing app. I think it's called Forest or something. It's supposed to like encourage you to study by like keeping the app open. You'll like grow the tree, and if you go out of the app, it dies. So that's how it's supposed to motivate you. But does anyone need like the slide link again? Or does everyone have it open? Okay, cool. So I will just kind of do it and you can follow along, but if you feel like you know what you're doing, please go ahead and do it. Yeah, so also the solution is like right on the left. So you can see the interactions, the prototyping if you get stuck. But yeah, we're gonna make sure we're in prototyping mode. So on the right panel, click prototype instead of design. And then we will get started. So the first thing we're gonna do is prototype this sidebar pop-up to like open and overlay on top of our mainframe, which is this right here. So while I'm on the mainframe, I'm gonna select the little menu button, which is 3 bars on the left. And then if you're in prototyping mode, you'll see like the nodes pop up with these plus signs, and then select any one of them. And then while I'm clicking it, I'm going to click and drag to this sidebar frame. Does everyone get that step? Or need me to do it again? Okay, cool. So now we've created a connection, and we're going to change the settings in this a little bit. So we have it on click. That is our trigger. And then instead of navigate to for our action, we're going to change it to open overlay. So if you open the little drop down and scroll down, you'll see open overlay at the bottom. And then instead of instant, if we choose instant, it'll be like it just pops up out of nowhere. But since it's like kind of on the side, we want it to move in. And then once you click move in, you'll see like all these other animation details that you can choose from. So I'm going to choose like the arrow pointing right. So it's going to move into the right. And we'll have it ease in and out just for funsies. And then make sure like the close when clicking outside is checked so that we can get out of the pop-up menu just by clicking anywhere outside of it. And then you should be done with that connection. Also, we have to make a flow starting point now. So click on your mainframe, just like the whole frame selected, and then click flow starting point on the right, and then you will have your flow created. And then once you have your flow starting point, you can click like this preview button on your mainframe. It looks like a square with a triangle, and then it'll pop up a nice iPhone. if it ever does this. And then you should see like your main frame, which is our starting frame. And then if you click on the button we just prototyped, you'll see the menu pop up to the right, just like how we connected it. How's everyone feeling on that? Any confusion? Oh, if it's not popping up, you can push R for like restart. And if it should pop up. Oh, to make the prototype. Sorry. Are you in prototype mode? So like on the right, it says prototype. Okay, do that. Does it work now? Is it still not working? Oh yeah, so you see on like the top right over here, it says like design and prototype. So if you just click prototype, you should be in prototype mode. It's also Shift E to like toggle between the two modes. Let me know if it works. Is it working? Okay. Okay. Did everyone make the pop-up menu? Yay. Okay, good job. The next thing we're gonna do is like make the settings page. So while you have the sidebar, we're going to click on the settings bar within the sidebar. So you can like click on the whole rectangle that the settings like word and the icon is in. And then we're gonna make a connection from that bar to the whole settings page on the right. And the interaction details for this should be on click, navigate to. Since we're changing the whole page, we're gonna do navigate to. And then you can really choose any kind of action you want, but I will do move in from the bottom. So I have the arrow pointing up. And then that should open up your settings page. So if we go back to the preview, we have our pop-up menu, and then if we click settings, it should open the settings from the bottom. Any questions? Okay. You guys are doing an amazing job. Okay. Okay, so next thing within the settings page, you'll see like all these settings that we can like turn on and turn off. So those are all like buttons, and you'll notice they're all instances of our component of the buttons. So we're actually going to prototype like within this component in order to elicit the same response from all the buttons that are already in our design. And this is like a really useful way of like speeding things up with prototyping, so you don't have to make so many frames for like each individual button. So we're gonna navigate to like our component buttons on the left here, and we're gonna select like the circle of the off button that's like gray, just like the inner circle. We're gonna make a connection to the other button that's green, and then the settings are gonna be on click, change to, and then we're gonna use Smart Animate this time. Since we use like the same circle and like oval shape in the back, Smart Animate will like notice this and then kind of like fill in the gap, so it'll be like a seamless transition between the two. And then I'm also gonna do the same thing back from the circle of the green button back to the gray button. On click, change to Smart Animate. And then since we have like these buttons are already instances of our component buttons and we just prototype the component, if we preview, then all the buttons in our settings page should be able to turn on and turn off, just like this. You guys all good on that so far? Yeah. Okay. Hmm. Maybe double check that all the buttons like in the settings frame are these instances. So you'll see that it's like an open diamond shape on the layers panel. And then maybe just double check in your component, the prototyping is like the same settings as this. So on click, change to smart animate. Okay, you found it. Good job. Anyone else having any trouble? Yes. Oh, what? That's very strange. But the other one is on click? That's very interesting. Let me take a look. Yeah. Everyone else do the button prototyping successfully. Yay. Okay. And then the last thing here we have is to like get out of the settings page. So we're gonna make a connection from the X of the settings page on the top left back to our starting mainframe. And this will be on click, navigate to, and we don't really want to do smart animate because nothing's the same. So we're going to do like move in or move out actually, or like instant dissolve, whatever you want really. But I'm gonna have it go out. So it should look like this. You can also just use like the present button instead of the preview if you want to see the whole thing. Um, we have our fully functioning settings page with all the buttons and the X button. Yay. You did it. How do we feel? Good? Okay. Do you feel like you accomplished something now because like you've successfully made like a whole prototyping of like an app? Good. You should feel proud. Um okay. There's like you'll do more practice with this in your lab sections and stuff, but yeah, prototyping I think is a little more intuitive than like components and like other hard concepts like auto layout and stuff. So hopefully like being able to see like the result of like what you're making is very helpful. Um but yeah, there's a lot you can do with prototyping. It's very fun and very interdisciplinary too. So you can do so much. But yeah, thank you for doing the demo. And now we'll just like wrap up with some announcements. We have homework 5, which is the midterm project. So hopefully you'll start cooking some ideas for what you want to do or what restaurant you want to choose or cafe, anything like that. And then what prompt you want to do also. And then lab 5 is some more basic prototyping practice. So you'll get to like see the full scope of smart animate and then kind of prototyping like a Spotify interface. And today's secret word will be forest. Forest in honor of the stress relieving app. Has anyone ever tried that app? Does it work? Oh really? Oh. Oh. Oh, I see. I see. Okay, yeah. And yeah, so homework, lab, midterm project proposals. Those are due on Tuesday. So if you want to do your own prompt, please fill that out. And we also have office hours. If you would like to get, any advice or questions, please schedule that. You can just message me or Chris on Slack. But yeah, that concludes today's lecture. Thank you everyone for coming, and good luck on the homework and the lab. Yeah. Oh, let me go back to that. Yeah.